What if the retaliation you are watching right now is not the real story? What if the missiles filling the sky are only the surface, and the deeper battle is being fought somewhere else entirely? Multiple ballistic missiles launched within minutes of one another, racing toward a target that officials are calling major. Air defense systems scrambling to respond. Smoke plumes rising over Jordan. Sirens wailing in Bahrain. Explosions reported near the American Fifth Fleet headquarters. This is what escalation looks like. But the real story is not in the explosions you see on the news. It is in the system those explosions are exposing. The retaliation came fast. Within hours of the United States striking dozens of targets inside Iran, Iranian forces launched a wave of ballistic missiles. Analysts say this marks one of the most intense escalations seen in months. The first launches were whacked from Markazi province in northwestern Iran. Observers described seeing the trails of multiple missiles rising into the sky, one after another. It was not a single strike. It was a barrage. Soon after, reports confirmed at least 5 ballistic missiles were fired, this time aimed at the MUWA FAQ's Halti Air Base in Jordan. This base is significant. It is jointly operated by the United States and the Royal Jordanian Air Force. It hosts American F-35 fighter jets, among the most advanced aircraft in the world. As the missiles approached, air defense systems activated. Interceptors shot into the sky, racing to meet the incoming threats. Smoke plumes appeared over Jordan as the defense systems attempted to knock the missiles down, but the attack was not limited to one location. More launches were detected from West Azerbaijan province. Iran appeared to be firing from multiple points at once, a sign of a coordinated, multi-front operation rather than an isolated response. The danger quickly spread beyond Iran's own borders. In Iraq, alarms sounded at Camp Victory near Baghdad's airport, housing American forces. Explosions were reported near the consulate area. In Bahrain, home to the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet headquarters, air raid sirens sounded. Multiple interceptors were visible in the air at the same time, a sign of just how many threats the defense systems were trying to handle at once. So here is the first question: was this a single retaliatory strike? Or was it the opening phase of something longer? To understand what happened, you have to look at what the IRGC actually claimed. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps stated that the attack used K-Hypersonic ballistic missiles. These are among Iran's most advanced missiles, with a range of approximately 700 kilometers, sufficient to reach U.S. military bases in Iraq, Jordan, and the Persian Gulf region. They utilize solid fuel and a lightweight airframe, allowing for rapid deployment from mobile launchers. The IRGC claimed the strike destroyed the target, but Jordan's military reported intercepting 8 missiles. The U.S. has not confirmed the extent of the damage. Here is the pattern that matters. Iran's missile technology is improving. The K-Hypersonic is faster, harder to intercept, and capable of reaching targets that were once out of range. But the U.S. Air Defense Network Patriot systems, Aegis, is also adapting, intercepting the majority of incoming threats. But this was not just a missile exchange. This was a test. A test of Iran's ability to strike multiple targets across multiple countries simultaneously. A test of America's ability to defend its allies and assets across the region. And a test of whether the escalation could be contained. But that was only the surface. Because the missiles were not the only thing in the air. While Iran's strikes were filling the headlines, a quieter story was unfolding on the ground inside Iran. American strikes did not stop. Smoke was seen rising over the Bushehr region following what appeared to be a direct hit. Iranian state media later confirmed that cruise missiles had struck the Bushehr nuclear power plant in the south of the country. The images showed a massive column of smoke, evidence that this was no minor facility being touched. It was one of Iran's most sensitive nuclear sites. But Bushehr was not alone. Explosions were also reported in Kerman, showing that the American campaign was reaching multiple regions at once, not concentrating on a single target. Then came a detail that mattered far more than it first appeared. Iran confirmed that an American strike had destroyed a rail bridge in Golestan province, the Akutek-Im-Inaston railway bridge near the Turkmenistan border. This was not just any bridge. It sits on a rail corridor connecting Iran to China and Russia through Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan. For years, this route had quietly allowed new weapons, spare parts, and supplies to move into Iran from its 2 largest strategic partners. Since late 2025, Russia had been using the route for cargo shipments to Iran, and China had been sending trains across the corridor. At least 65 trains had traveled from China to Iran over the past year, and the number had tripled after the U.S. blockade of Iranian Gulf ports. With the bridge gone, The options narrowed sharply. Russia could still send materials by sea, using the Caspian route. China, however, had no such alternative. Its only remaining path would be by air, flying supplies directly into a country currently under active bombardment. In effect, one strike had done something airstrikes rarely accomplish so cleanly. It had cut off a supply line that took years to build. But then something unexpected happened. Iranian authorities reopened the bridge in less than 24 hours. The governor of Golestan province described the rapid restoration as a practical response to attempts to disrupt the country's transport infrastructure. Emergency rescue, engineering, and public service teams were mobilized to restore the railway line as quickly as possible. The message was clear: Iran is not just fighting back. It is adapting. It is repairing. It is trying to outlast the pressure. But the question remains, how many times can Iran rebuild before the damage becomes permanent? Now look at the wider picture. The attack on the rail bridge was not an isolated incident. Iranian officials have filed a formal complaint with the Intergovernmental Organization for Railway Transport, claiming the attack is part of a pattern of successive attacks targeting Iran's railway, network and other civilian transport infrastructure. Iran's foreign ministry described the U.S. attacks as aggressive attacks on sites throughout southern coastal provinces and to railway bridges along the line leading to the northeastern city of Mashhad. The ministry accused the U.S. of breaching Articles 1 and 5 of the Memorandum of Understanding on Ending the War. The memorandum is now dead. But here is the deeper question. If the United States is targeting supply lines, and Iran is rushing to repair them, then the conflict is no longer about missiles and fighter jets. It is about endurance. It is about who can sustain the fight longer. Iran's strategy appears to rest on a simple calculation: outlast the pressure. Wait for the United States to lose its appetite for the fight. Use the supply corridor to Russia and China to rebuild. And then return to the negotiating table from a position of strength. But if the supply corridor is repeatedly targeted, if the bridges keep getting hit, the rail lines keep getting damaged, the ports keep getting blockaded, then the calculation changes. And the war becomes something else entirely. If the rail corridor is cut, how long can Iran sustain its military without Chinese and Russian resupply? If the nuclear sites are threatened, how much risk is Iran willing to accept? And if the United States can destroy in hours what took Iran years to build, what does that say about the foundation of Iranian power? And there is one more layer to this story. Away from the battlefield, another dimension of this conflict was taking shape. Inside government offices and quiet briefing rooms, President Trump received an intelligence briefing at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. A signal that Washington was treating this escalation with the highest level of attention. Then came a detail that revealed just how far this conflict has expanded. Iran had reportedly made threats against President Trump personally. When asked about a reported Iranian kill list, Trump did not deny its existence. He stated plainly that he believed he was likely at the top of it, adding that if he were targeted, others around him would be affected as well. The Secret Service reportedly made a very deliberate choice. Instead of using the newer aircraft that was gifted more recently, they placed the president on the older, classic Air Force One, the aircraft that has protected presidents for decades. The older model is believed to have extensive missile detection and self-minus protection systems. Experts noted that the newer Qatari- donated jet likely lacks some of those capabilities because of how quickly it was retrofitted. When a hostile government openly threatens the life of a sitting president, you do not gamble with something unproven. You go with what has already stood the test of time. So while Iran was busy launching missiles, the American response was business as usual, just with extra armor. But the deeper message is this. The conflict has entered a new phase. It is no longer just about the Strait of Hormuz. It is no longer just about the nuclear program. It has expanded to oil diplomacy, personal security, and political messaging. Each side is calculating not just military strength, but economic leverage and psychological pressure. So here is the question that remains. If a single bridge connecting Iran to its two biggest allies can be destroyed in a single strike and repaired in a single day, what is the real lesson? Is it that Iran is resilient? Or is it that the infrastructure supporting Iran's war effort is more fragile than it appears? If the rail corridor is cut, how long can Iran sustain its military without Chinese and Russian resupply? If the nuclear sites are threatened, how much risk is Iran willing to accept? And if the United States can destroy in hours what took Iran years to build, what does that say about the foundation of Iranian power? The weapons we see are only the surface. The systems we don't see, the industrial capacity, the logistics, the institutional coherence are what determine how long those weapons can continue to exist. Iran's leadership built its entire strategy around outlasting pressure, believing that time was on their side. That the talks could drag on forever while they quietly rebuilt strength through backdoor trade routes and allied support. That plan depended on one thing: staying open, the supply corridor to Russia and China. Now that corridor has been struck, and although it was repaired within a day, the threat remains. The question is not whether Iran can repair a bridge. The question is whether Iran can't sustain a war when the bridges keep getting hit, the ports keep getting blockaded, and the supply lines keep getting severed. The Strait of Hormuz is open. The missiles continue to fly. The carrier strike groups are still pushing north. And the real battle is being fought inside a system most people never see.